Right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Let's go, man. Okay, so Belal Muhammad just lost via decision on that one. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one. It just seems that MMA nowadays doesn't credit wrestling as much as it should. I would like to think that the wrestling is ultimately what could have won Belal Muhammad the fight, but unfortunately, he did not win the fight. We're going to talk about it. Where does Bonfim go from here? Because obviously, there is a trajectory that he's going to, well, some sort of advancements, at least in his career rankings at this point. Victory, shout out to you. He said the Canelo hands failed him. Daniel Barry Sport Highlight says, "What's good, guys? Happy Saturday. Thank you." Humble Man says, "The man, Kyrie, always appreciate you, my man." Yeah, hey, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And you know what? It is just those types of motivations and positive reaffirmations that I hear from you guys that absolutely keeps me motivated, right? It's always important to be motivated when you do these things, no matter what the circumstances. Now, obviously, for what you guys are seeing right now, I am doing this in combat radio form, right? I'm basically doing this on radio form because, well, I don't really have to explain myself to you. But what I will explain to you, though, is what happened tonight. And is Victory right about Belal Muhammad? Did his Canelo hands fail him? I thought that Belal Muhammad looked fairly decent in his striking, fairly decent. Okay, now I will say that Bonfim had a lot of good moments going there, and well, we're gonna try to analyze that. Let's see, what is this on the screen right now? It looks like we got hockey going on here. Okay, let's change the scenery here a little bit, and let us see if we can take a look at the stats right here. Let's take a look at some stats. Okay, Connor says embarrassing for performance from Bilal. Shot zero takedowns. He's fully washed now. You know what, man? I think the distance game that Gabriel Bonfim was playing here ultimately is what I think helped him keep Bilal Muhammad from shooting in with the takedowns. Because look, I need you to understand something, right? If you are a wrestler, okay, you need somebody that is highly cooperative with you in terms of taking downs. What do I mean by that? Did you know that in wrestling, you can't take a step back, at least not all the way towards the end of the mat, right? But there's a limit. There's a limit to you stepping back. So, what do you do to de enhance the game of a wrestler? You play the range game with them. You give them a far distant range for them to work with because ultimately, at least for the most part, most takedowns and most wrestling exchanges take place in close quarter combat situations. So, what do you do with that? You got to play the distance game. Okay. And the other way that you play the distance, or I'm sorry, the other way that you play with a wrestler. Okay. I'll give you an example, right? Let me read some comments here before I go on with what I'm saying. Um, okay. So Humble Man says, Assalamu alaikum, Kyrie. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh to you, Humble Man. Humble Man says, remember, Bully has an RAF match as well. Okay, Humble Man says, I forgot who his opponent is though. Ben Askren, I believe, is his opponent. Yeah, he's wrestling Ben Askren. Okay, so Connor confers it right there. Connor Siller says takedowns from distance aren't impossible. Low sweep single or punch your way in. Correct. Obviously, that is one of the components of mixed martial arts is using the strikes in order to get in there, in order to get the close range, right? You got to use the strikes to get yourself in there, whether it's using kicks, side kicks, or just trying to gauge your distance or trying to basically improve your footwork, right? You got to have some wheels underneath you in order to do that. Dominic Cruz, obviously somebody with a wrestling background, but somebody with a wrestling background that has great footwork. I mean, probably one of the best footwork there is. Humble Man MMA says, "Oh, LOL, Connor." Okay. Connor Siller says, many options. Yes, but you give enough distance, you dehabilitate the wrestler's work. Okay, so what I was going to say before I stopped myself to read the comments was talk about this training session that I had with former. I think he's still a Team Alpha Male fighter, but uh, Angelo Trevino, right? He was a Team Alpha Male fighter. Uriah Faber talked about him immensely a lot, right? I had mentioned him in my Tom Aspinall documentary. I urge you guys to take a look at that to see what I said about him. Was it disparaging? Was it uh, complimentary? You're going to have to go check out that documentary that I made on Tom Aspinall's dad on my video section to find out. But here's what I will tell you, right? I've trained with the kid since he was in high school, and then he got into the pros, right? He helped me with an amateur Muay Thai, a lot of amateur Muay Thai fights that I've had actually, because I met him at Muay Thai Lao in the Muay Thai facility owned by Uriah Faber's former Muay Thai coach, right, Andy K. So we trained together, right, since he was a teenager all the way up to the time that he was into the pros. And he was a very good wrestler, very good wrestler. But I tell you what, when we practiced, I noticed how I was able to handle him in a way where it was sort of conducive to dehabilitating his game, right? So obviously, great wrestler. What did I do with him? I grabbed on to his wrist, and by the way, this is just straight grappling sessions, right? Double, basically 2-on-1 in one wrist, right? Because if you put a 2-on-1 in one wrist, okay, he's going to have to work to try to get off two, and you already have two in one hand, and he is already dehabilitated at that point. So you need your hands to shoot. You need your hands to uh, go in for a single leg, an ankle pick, a double leg. You need your hands to collapse together in order to lift somebody up in a double leg position, right? You need your hands collapsed together in order to do that. So, how do you prevent a wrestler that is going to take you for a ride or himself anticipating that you are going for a ride? You dehabilitate his hands away from clapping towards each other, right? So you create distance. Same as when you are out there in the same as when you're out there in the field, when you're out there in the mat. You want to create distance. You want to create distance. You want to create distance with his hands, from his hands clapping on the other hand, because once his hand claps together, guess what? You're going to have some problems. He says, Kyrie, what's your amateur Muay Thai record? I believe 5-0. Yeah, so I had about like five amateur Muay Thai fights. I believe three of them were at an amateur tournament, an IKF amateur tournament, and then two of them were just uh, short notices. So yeah, 5-0. Two short notice ones, and then and then three to yeah to in a tournament. So um let me see here. Connor says you go 2-on-1 on me. I'm going fireman's carry all day. Well, that's what you would do, okay? And great that that's what you would do. There's room for that. There's room that can happen, Connor, right? But there's a lot of people that don't have that uh, awareness and wits and all to transition that particular movement, basically turning a 2-on-1 into a fireman's carry, right? Very few are going to have that in their mind. Same thing in striking, right? And man, let me tell you, man, before I developed really good footwork, I swear to you, I felt like I was really blind. I had a lot of blind spots in the striking, okay? And it's only after a while you really start to notice the blind spots that you've developed over the years. Yeah, a lot of people have blind spots in their striking that many people fail to realize until they really understand striking at the highest level that they can potentially learn it. Right? Okay. For example, what do you do when somebody is throwing straight hands at you? Right? No hooks or anything like that. Right? Just straightforward throwing straight at you. Like, for example, if you ever seen Vitor Belfort in the bare knuckle days of the UFC, right? If you notice, there was this one fight where he fought like some fat guy and he just walked up to him straight, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? You know why he was able to do that? He also did that to Vanderlei Silva, from what I remember as well, right? We're talking about Vitor Belfort, right? The only reason why he was able to do that is because these guys had a linear in terms of their boxing defense. So, in other words, their linear was just going straight forward. They didn't know anything about angling to the right, flanking to the left, flanking to your right, circling around, and then flanking again, and then turning around or switching positions with your opponent in a striking position of you being in the ropes, or i.e., the cage in this MMA setting, and then you switching it up to putting them in the rope or the cage with you on the dominant position, right? These are all the type of angles that, quite frankly, amateur, or in better terms, less experienced strikers sort of experience, right? It's just one of those things. There's a lot that goes on into striking, and man, there's a lot of blind spots. So I guess that's a bit of my long-winded response to you, Connor, when you said that if you were to go 2-on-1 on me and you'd put me on a fireman's carry, I say good. Well, that's a technique that you see right there, or a technique that presents itself at that current moment of time of the action and the sequences of the grappling exchanges, right? But some people are not going to see that, just like some people just don't see straight line down shots that you could avoid by basically turning to your right or to your left, right? Kind of like what you see when you do those little duck exercises in boxing, right? Where you have a rope and you duck underneath the rope and you go side to side in these linear motions, right? Mike Tyson did a lot of this. This is how he was able to perfect a lot of his bob and weave, right? That is the solution to straight shots that are coming at you. But believe it or not, some people don't train their head movement. They don't duck under. They don't have any particular skill set that they developed, and they're just very linear in how they approach their head movement. And I say that to say this: Belal Muhammad seemed to have displayed a lot of, very good. I would say a fairly decent head movement and fairly decent, footwork, right? So I don't know, but you know what? He wasn't able to score any takedowns, so it's hard for me to justify Belal Muhammad to any degree. Very difficult for me to justify him winning this whatsoever. Uh, so I don't know. I'm not too mad at it. I'm not as mad as this one as I am with, let's say, the Kamzat and the Sean Strickland fight, which, by the way, was relatively very close. Okay, I don't want to make any mistakes about that, right? That fight was relatively close, but at least having takedowns gives you what I would say is the moral high ground to argue positions of possible wins, right? It's just very difficult to give that to Belal Muhammad in any kind of way. So, big ups to Bonfim, man. We're gonna have to see where he, lands from here. Right. What did Connor here say? Sparring kickboxers is way harder than boxers. Why would you say that? Why would you say that, Connor? What makes boxers, or I'm sorry, kickboxers harder than boxers? Is it that boxers are just linear, or yeah? Give me some explanation as to what you think. But in the meantime, let's go over the co-main event of the evening, right? So let me see here. The co-main event of the evening, obviously Brendan Allen and Edmund Shabazian. Yeah, no takedowns in that fight as well. Edmund Shabazian had the more accurate striking, right? At least according to stats. Okay, that's only according to stats. If you take a look right here, right? Take a look right here. The stats. It seems that Edmund Shabazian had the better percentage, but they gave it to Brendan Allen. And perhaps maybe the aggression of Brendan Allen is what ultimately won him the fight. But I don't know, man. I'm not mad at it. Aggression points are a thing in MMA, so that is something that you definitely have to keep in mind. So I'm not too mad at it. Tom Nolan taking on Faraz ZM. Okay, so once again, 3 takedowns out of 5 for Faraz ZM. Man, yeah, very close fights these are, man. Okay, because if you look at the stats on this one, Faraz Zaham seems to have the higher percentage, right? We're talking about 68 out of versus 56, and then 3 out of 5 takedowns. But Tom Nolan only had 2 out of 6, and then Faraz Zaham had 1 submission attempt. So I don't know, man. But on any regard, next fight, obviously, Bryce Mitchell, one of the crowd favorites of this particular fight card, right? A lot of people wished he probably fought at the White House, but it is what it is. He got his fight in a week early, and here we are, right? Third round submission, arm triangle choke by Bryce Mitchell. Not surprised by it at all. Look, Bryce Mitchell is a high level grappler. He just proved it right here. He just proved his uh, grappling prowess. You know what? Here's the thing about Bryce Mitchell. He reminds me of Jake Shields, right? And I don't mean politically either, right? When I say that he reminds me of Jake Shields, I'm not talking politics. I'm not talking just politics, okay? I'm literally talking skills as well, right? So what do I mean by that? When Jake Shields fought, he created a style called American Jiu-Jitsu, okay? Now, what is American Jiu-Jitsu in the creation of Jake Shields' mind? Well, American Jiu-Jitsu, okay, because as you know, Jiu-Jitsu is very defensive. It relies a lot on fighting off of your back. It relies a lot on uh, being very defensive instead of being offensive. Because by the end of the day, mixed martial arts is it's a spectator sport. So, what do you want out of a spectator sport? What you want out of a spectator sport is action, movement, constant movement, right? Pushing the aggression, transitioning from one spot to the other. That is the main mission of uh, this particular combat sports, right? It's like wrestling. You get points taken away in wrestling for stalemates. A lot of people don't know that, right? So what does it do? It forces a very explosive action in the wrestling exchanges, right? Because you got to constantly move. You can't just rest in one particular area. Guess what? In jiu-jitsu, you have moments to rest. You have moments to rest in jiu-jitsu, but that is inconducive to scoring points on an entertainment spectator sport like mixed martial arts. Okay? So, with that regard, you can't do it, man. You can't do it. You can't fight like that. And you see why modern jiu-jitsu guys are failing right now, like Kron Gracie, the Kron Gracie types of the world. There's a reason why guys like Gary Tonin or all those other guys that are in jiu-jitsu, Craig Jones, Mike Musumeci, they have a very hard time transitioning to MMA or even entertaining the fact that they could fight MMA. They just are not able to do it. Why? Because their style and their uh, overwhelming patience And what I mean overwhelming patience, I mean they will literally just sit in the guard all day long. It's not conducive to scoring points in MMA. Well, I say that to say this. Jake Shields created American Jiu-Jitsu. Jake Shields had a wrestling background, but he was also a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt, right? Very similar to Nate Diaz. They both are black belts under the same Jiu-Jitsu instructor, but there's a difference. Jake has a wrestling background where he sort of exhibits a little bit more aggression than, let's say, that of Nate Diaz, who, in his unique fighting style, he uses jujitsu as a defensive mechanism. So, in other words, if you knock Nate Diaz down and you follow him to the ground, there's a high susceptibility that he's going to catch you with a triangle choke, right? And then flex on you with, yeah, as you've seen in some old school Nate Diaz highlights. So that's Bryce Mitchell in a nutshell. American Jiu-Jitsu. That's what we're seeing out of him, right? A little bit of that style. And it worked tonight. So because of that, he got the third round submission. And by the way, just 8 seconds left. Look at this. Look at this. There was literally 8 seconds left, okay, before he was going to get counted out right there, right? I mean, he was just on the verge of winning by a decision at that point, right? He had the most takedowns. His striking was very highly accurate. I mean, Santiago had a very high percentage in his striking as well, right? Just constantly connecting, but, it just wasn't enough. So next matchup, this guy's going to be a phenom right here, right? Leg kicks him, and then all of a sudden goes down, just finishes him off right there. First round TKO by Borowinski from Poland. Somebody to look out for right there. And, great, easy victory by the end of the night. So that was the first fight of the the main card. So in the prelims, what do we got right here? Costa taking on Matt Schnell. Wow, man, this knockout came out of nowhere right here. Great knockout by Costa in this one. Marcus McGee gets a 3-round decision on that one. Bruno Silva loses by submission against Edgar Shiraz. Priscilla Kuchera loses to Chelsea Chandler, straight out of Stockton, by the way. All right, and then Jordan Levitt gets submitted by Brito. And then the last 2 fights of the night right here. The first 2 fights were the women's fights. Decision. And then out of nowhere. This was an out of nowhere. Yeah, this came out of nowhere right here. This knockout right here. Just literally came out of nowhere. So, yeah, man, that's what we got for the fights of the night. So, obviously, all throughout the week, we're going to do more coverage for the UFC White House, because now this card, and how ironic, right? We would have a Belal Muhammad card as the last card before the White House, right? I mean, it would be a Belal Muhammad card, but unfortunately he lost tonight. And more importantly, what I really wanted to talk about with that, right, is where does his career trajectory go from here? Where does Belal Muhammad's career trajectory go from here? Because I know a lot of people are going to say, you know what, he's washed. He's 37 years old. He has no business being in the fight game anymore. And I beg to differ, okay? Because I'm going to tell you where this trajectory is going to be at, okay? Look, Belal Muhammad lost, right? Perfectly fine. It happens. It happens. These losses happen. But here's the thing about it, right? Here's the thing that you got to understand. Belal Muhammad is one of those guys that loses at times, but at times he also wins the big ones. I think that's ultimately what is happening here. He's going to win some of the big ones, but then he's also going to lose some of these matches as well. Look, it's MMA, guys. Okay, I think a lot of people take too much from losses in MMA. I really do. I think a lot of people take way too much out of the losses. In other words, the losses don't give an overall, it doesn't give an overall projection on an athlete's future performance. All right. Now, why do I say that? Because MMA is a coin toss. I want you to think of it like this, right? Jorge Masvidal, at one point of his career, was a journeyman fighter. Uh, until out of nowhere, he gets a knockout from Darren Till in Darren Till's home country, and then out of nowhere gets a fight with an undefeated Ben Askren. And what happens with the undefeated Ben Askren? He defeats Ben Askren for the first time, uh, and then catapults himself into the next stratosphere of superstardom, right? Because remember, the UFC traded Ben Askren for Demetrius Johnson. Demetrius Johnson doesn't like to talk smack. He likes to play video games. There's nothing really interesting about him other than the fact that he wins fights, right? Well, there's a lot of champions that win fights. There's a lot of fighters that win fights. There's fighters that win fights every other weekend. But he wasn't entertaining enough, not the way Ben Askren was. However, the minute that Ben Askren got knocked out in 5 seconds by Jorge Masvidal, all of a sudden you started realizing, you know what? Ben Askren fell off. Yeah, he fell off. He never went out of his way. He never went out of his way to try and evolve himself. Okay? He never tried to evolve his skills in any kind of way. And unfortunately, as a result of not doing that, guess what, man? He lost the superstardom and they gave it to Jorge Masvidal. So by the end of the day, it was a useful trade. It was a useful trade because it was a trade that needed to happen. And plus, Demetrius Johnson sort of blended way better out in Asia than he does in the prize fighting world of the UFC, where everything is predicated on the value of entertainment and your mic skills. So, yeah, that's more on this fight in a second. Hold on a second, guys. So yeah, I don't want anybody to really take too much into this loss with Belal Muhammad. It's one of those things where he's just one of those fighters, right? He loses some, he wins some, and then out of nowhere he wins the big ones, right? That's the same way that I sort of described. Well, I mean, Jorge Masvidal is one way to describe that. The other way to describe that is Sean Strickland in this particular example. He gets knocked out in the first round by Alex Pereira, only for him to come back later down the road and then get an upset victory over Izzy, loses to Dricus, then comes back and then gets an upset win over Khamzat. That is just MMA in a nutshell. And that's just something that a lot of people have to understand when it comes to this game.
Mic check, 1, 2, 2. Mic check, 1, 2, 2. All right, so what else do they have on right now? Consider showing the highlights of the Tom Nolan fight right now. Yeah, 8 times.
Down right here. He's going for top position right here. Yeah, gets a victory on this one. I don't know, man. I don't necessarily agree with this victory, but I don't know, man. A lot of the judging lately has been really suspect, right? So I don't know what you would attribute that to, but we're now listening to what's his name? Rashad Evans. Rashad Evans and Anthony Smith. Yeah, Anthony Smith coming off of that win. As the fight went on, Tom Nolan was able to adapt whatever Faraz was throwing at him. But I don't know, man. Look, stats do not lie. They don't lie at all. I just think that I don't know, man. I don't know. I think the judges were seeing a completely different fight there. Okay, now you're showing the highlights of Faraz him on slamming him down a few times here. All right, yeah, more coverage on this.
I've had other times in fights where I've been clipped and I've had little flash moments where I've gone down and people are like, oh, he's not durable or whatever. But I'm young, I'm strong, I'm fit, and I'm big to the division. I can definitely, now that I've got this figured out, I'm confident I can stand against anyone in there.
Well, that makes me excited for your future fights now that you have this down. You called out Money Moicano. I don't know if you know this, but he's already posted on X saying easy money. So why call out that fight? What's your response to it, and how do you think that fight goes?
He's someone I've watched forever. I have nothing but respect for him.
Okay, I'll tell you why.
I would love to see that.
And this is not. Okay, mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Okay, I'll tell you why. Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so we got the mic check going. Okay, so yeah, against Money Moicano. Okay, I think that would be far too advanced for him, right? Because see here's how I kind of see that go, right? I think that's an advanced matchup for him, but I also think that he would give Moicano. Team with a few people trying to break in, the borders of that, right? That's sort of the trajectory that he's at, right? So I think that's a good call out, but I also think that that would be, a little bit too advanced for him, I would say. So yeah. Yeah. All right, so had to set up the thumbnail on that one. So it's just like a thumbnail of like Bilal Muhammad getting punched in the face by Bonfim, which kind of like gives a bit of a self-explanatory as to what happened here, which is basically, yeah. I mean, there was no takedowns by Bilal Muhammad, so it's kind of hard to justify any particular wins for him on that regard. All right, so who would Bonfim be fighting next, right? Let's take a look at the official athlete rankings of the UFC, because obviously they're going to update this Tuesday, which is every Tuesday is where they have this updated. But let's take a look at the rankings on this one. Oh, how about this, man? After Costa knocked out Matt Schnell was still trying to wrestle him after the fact, which, by the way, is very common, obviously, after a lot of stoppages, right? The fighter doesn't have his wits and all in that particular moment of time, right? So he just keeps on. But sometimes they end up wrestling the referee. Sometimes they end up grappling with the referee. Like, oh man, it's just, yeah, it looks really bad. But yeah, all right, Souza versus Carnelossi here. Wow, good head kick right there. After that head kick just follows up. Look at this right here. And then head kick. So it's a head kick that falls, and then okay, so yeah, one shot on the ground to follow up afterwards. All right, now about Levitt and Brito. Is it Burrito or Barreto? How would you pronounce his name on this one? Brito. Okay, as they say. So Brito. So he tries to shoot in here for a double leg, and that's what ultimately caught him in this choke right here. Yeah, he's got to be very careful when you try to go for a choke against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists like this. Oh, what is this? Okay, I guess he pulled off a little bit of a Derek Lewis move right here, if you know what I'm talking about. But
A lot of trouble. She's a Caesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu prodigy. She's been refining.
okay, that's why. That's the Stockton connection behind Chandler is the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, that makes sense.
Prelims, they set the tone. Of the 7 fights, we had 5 stops. It was incredible.
Okay, so it had 5 stoppages.
Here this post show, we are going to preview Freedom 250. 8 days away at the White House. We'll be back.
Man, 8 days away, 8 fights. Is it 8 fights in this card? Let me see here.
Check your socials because there's big news in the sports world. No, it's not a blockbuster trade or a big name free agent signing. The DraftKings Sports app is now available nationwide. So if you're anywhere from Florida to Texas to California, you can get in the game at the speed of sports. And feel the sweat.
All right, so how many fights does so Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia, Bo Nickel versus Kyle, Ruthie versus Chandler, Derek Lewis versus Hockett, O'Malley versus the Hobby, Pereira versus Don, and Saporia versus, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights. Okay, not even 8. Back in the old school days, they used to have only 8 fights in a pay-per-view, right? And then the first of the 8 fights that you see, you normally don't even see on on TV. Sometimes you'd either have to catch it on UFC's Facebook page, or sometimes even just some random YouTube pages that has nothing to do with the UFC or is some kind of UFC affiliate in a way.
Such an honor. Something that I could have never dreamed.
Wow, they're showing the promo. I wonder if this has a countdown show. You'd have to probably look at the UFC website to see, or their YouTube channel, because they usually drop countdown shows right around the Sundays or so. Yeah, so let me know on the comment section below if there is a countdown show that they normally would have for like pay-per-views and whatnot. Let's hear Bryce Mitchell's post-Octagon interview right here.
Nobody is sitting
Your beloved pet is suddenly missing. Luckily, you have Google Fi Wireless, letting you.
reaching legendary status.
4 minutes, 52 seconds into round number 3. Referee Chris Knight.
Okay, they're also showing the White House
How good does that feel? And God said, whom shall I send? Who will go for us?
All right, so Bryce is just dropping some verses on this one.
They will mount up with wings like the fly.
Okay, what else did he say here that was
So to constantly pressuring from that top position.
yeah, just constant pressure he had put on Luna there.
Beginning of that fight, basically round 1, round 2, round 3, just dominant when it hit the mat. I am, and there was transitions where he did get on top of the White House. Actually, the first takedown, I didn't quite earn it. He kind of tripped a little bit on it, and I fell on top of it. And then he was a little bit more fatigued in the second and third rounds. But, you know, it's a much closer fight than what it looks like because small transitions, and he would have actually got on top in 1 round.
Okay, yeah, this face-off was definitely not AI. That face-off between Topuria and Gaethje was, was absolutely done at the White House. They had their own press conference for that one. Oh yeah, so that's probably the important part of the post-fight speech. He basically bigged them up, said, you came here at a short notice, which is, very interesting for him to bring up, right? Because it's not something. Well, you know what, man? Usually, if your opponent came in there at very like undesirable circumstances, right? Like they came in there at 3 days' notice. They had to cut a whole bunch of weight that may have affected their performance. That's not something that most people will admit to, right? You often want to make it seem like your opponent has, had the best chance possible, right? Even though they didn't, right? But it's good that at least Bryce sort of recognized that and brought attention to it. So right now they're talking about the Ilia Topuria and the Justin Gaethje fight, which you know what? Like, I know a lot of people are going to complain about the card, but you got to understand, right? There's a reason why they had to make the card the way that it did. I mean, on any given card, Justin Gaethje and Ilia Topuria would make a great pay-per-view in New York, in Miami, in London, wherever else they have the big major fights, right? But you got to understand that they're at a $60 million deficit for this event, right? That they spent on. So they can't spend it on, people like McGregor or John Jones or the big names. I mean, not to say that Ilia Topuria isn't a big name, but if you think about it, right, he's a name that's sort of really just trying to establish himself right now, even though he's already a double champ, right? He certainly is not a double champ in terms of popularity the way that Connor was when he was a double champ, right? It's a completely different type of format, right? In terms of social media and in terms of how the audience consumes their pay-per-views. So this is sort of a boost for him in a way, right? A boost, but a very expensive boost and investment from the UFC as it follows. Yeah, Justin Gaethje, he's like everyone's favorite fighter, right? Your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, as they say, right? Because who doesn't love a Justin Gaethje fight? It's just constant highlights and constant action. And then sometimes, you know what? Sometimes there are times where he can lead you into a bore fest. So there's Cyril Gahn right there. Ooh. Showing highlights of Alex Pereira knocking out Jiri. Yeah, he's going to be very slow at 265 pound plus, right? At heavyweight. Very slow. And you know what? It's not like Alex Pereira ever was like a light footed, elusive fighter in any kind of way. Because quite frankly, the only way that weight class skills transfer over is if you have the footwork, right? Like Usyk, for example, in boxing, right? How is it that he was able to transition from cruiserweight all the way to heavyweight, right? I mean, we're talking about like the real giants of the heavyweight division, at least in this era, right? You didn't have giants like that in the era of Ali and George Foreman. I mean, George Foreman is probably just the biggest guy that they could potentially find, at that point, right? At most, he was like maybe 6'3". Some say he was 6'4", 6'5". No, not even 6'5". For sure, he wasn't 6'5" because Joshua is 6'5". Fury is 6'7", close to 6'9". Deontay Wilder is 6'7". He beat all of them. Dubois 6'3", 6'4", I believe. No, I think 6'5" is Dubois. He beat all of them. Dubois. He beat Joshua twice, beat Fury twice, and he's not exactly the biggest heavyweight. Well, how is it that he was able to do that? He was able to do that because he had the elusive footwork in order to translate his skills over into the next weight division. Which, by the way, if you wonder why he struggled against Rico in his recent fight, we're talking about Usyk, right? I think it's because he sort of deviated away from those elusive footwork and and that style of movement that got him to the dance. All right, so they gave a performance award to Edgar Chairaz, Berensky, and then the Brendan Allen fight was the fight of the night. Huh, okay. That's interesting. What made that fight of the night with Brendan Allen? All right, so why Brendan Allen and Edmund Shabazi in this fight of the night? All right, 4 takedown attempts by Brendan Allen, only got one out of it. He was the only one that scored a takedown that whole entire fight. And then some might argue that Edmund Shabazian was the more accurate, striker in that, but it just seems like the aggression and cage control of Brendan Allen probably won him that fight. All right, so we're probably going to do some picks for the White House. All right, so let's see what else here. What else were some other fights here that had gone down? Um, oh yeah. So for um Gabriel Bonfim, let's take a look at the ranking. All right, so the UFC athlete rankings. Let's check this out right here. We got to check out the rankings just so we can get a perspective of where Bonfim is at right now. So, all right, let's see here. We got the flyweights, bantamweights. We got to go up a little bit right here. Okay, so welterweight. Ian obviously is going to fight Islam Makhachev. That's coming up soon. Carlos Prates, not too far away. Drizzy Goat says, LOL, I bet you picked Belal because you're Muslim, right? I picked Bonfim for the win. I mean, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, sorry about that. Had a little bit of some. Okay, so to respond to what you were saying, yeah, I'll bet you picked Bilal because you're Muslim, right? Look, here's the thing, Drizzy. I'm not one of these channels that prides themselves on picks. First of all, I'm not a gambler. And if I did make picks, you would see some reasonability, but also some biasness behind it. Uh, so I don't know, man. It's not indicative of whether, like, look, bro, you getting the right picks every week does not indicate that you understand MMA to its full extent. It just means that you understand the fighters that are involved and the skills that differentiate one over the other. That's what it really comes down to. He says, come shot now, Belal. Bro, there's a pattern happening. Islam is next. There's no pattern happening. Let me explain something to you, Drizzy, okay? When Anthony Joshua got knocked out by Andy Ruiz, many people said there was a pattern going on. You know what fight was going on during the time of Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua? Do you know what fight was going on? The fight that was going on was Khabib and Dustin Poirier. My buddies in New Jersey, many of them, they're Dustin Poirier fans. They support Dustin Poirier. They like Dustin Poirier. They like that Dustin Poirier likes the same type of Harlem rap music that they do because apparently Dustin Poirier is a big fan of Dipset, right? And he's referenced this multiple times. So for whatever reason, they love Dustin Poirier. You know what they said? They said there's a pattern going on here, right? Anthony Joshua lost against Andy Ruiz. There's a great chance that Khabib is going to lose to Dustin Poirier. You know what that's called, Drizzy Goat? That's called recency bias. That's what it's called, my man. Connor Siller, BJJ says, to be fair, both were favorites. Was Belal Muhammad a favorite going into this one? That's a little surprising. I didn't know that. Okay, that would make sense. Obviously he has the wrestling, right? Wrestling wins fights, but this is one of these fights where I can't make any excuses for Belal Muhammad because his wrestling didn't win any fights. In fact, he had no wrestling at all. So it's very difficult to even give any type of notion of credibility to Belal Muhammad in the way that you would for Khamzat. You see, at least with Khamzat, he took Sean Strickland to the ground multiple times. Okay, he dominated him multiple times. There was minutes upon minutes of ground control time. Okay, you can't deny Khamzat of that. And all right, if you want to have a debate on who won it or not, let's just be honest about it, right? By the end of the day, Sean won because that's what the judges said. And for the rest of us, we have a case. Okay, we all have a case. In this fight right here, I don't know. There's not really much case for Belal Muhammad. He says, yes, Belal was 120, but closer to the fight, it was 110. Okay. Because somewhere down the line, they probably thought, you know what? It's Bonfim's time, man. Sometimes that's just what it is. If you guys weren't here earlier, the other thing that I had mentioned and what I had said was that this is not indicative of anything, right? Because Belal Muhammad could easily get put on a card tomorrow and win big, right? So, for example, I don't know. Let's take a look at who is in the White House card, right? Bo Nickel. What if, let's say, somebody falls out in the Bo Nickel fight? Okay. Let's make it not fun. Okay. Let's say that he has to fight Kyle Dawkins. All right. Let's say that Bo Nickel came up with a cold or came up with an injury and he just absolutely lost his opportunity to go in there and fight at the White House, right? So just a hypothetical scenario. Belal Muhammad, you ready? You want to go to the White House? Okay, boom. He gets a win over Kyle Dawkins. He could beat Kyle Dawkins. Juice Man says drop a panel. It would be too late for me to do so, man. Yeah, I would have had to send a link prior. Connor Biller says, in Khamzat's fight, I honestly thought Sean won 4 rounds. I didn't think it was very close. I thought Khamzat was going to win easy. You thought Sean won 4 rounds? I mean, look, am I supposed to rage over that? And look, this is not against you or anything, Connor, right? I'm saying this because I often notice that people are so passionate about this in a way where they think like their strong opinion is going to change, one way or the other, right? I just don't see that happening, changing in one direction to another, right? It's not going to change the outcome of the fight or our arguments because on the official scorecards, Sean Strickland won the fight. However, here's the thing, though, right? It's still highly debatable, right? Whether it goes one way or another, it's still highly debatable. It's debatable, is what I'm saying, right? There's room for anybody to have convictions one way or another about it. I'm not mad at it, but I need people to understand that it's not going to change anything. And yeah, I think that it's really important to not get too worked up and emotional about it. I think is what I say. Um, Juice Man says, Connor, what it do? Okay. Connor Siller says, what's up, Juice? Connor Siller says, I picked Kamzat to win, so not biased. Sean won convincingly. Okay, and I know what you mean by that, man. Because look, what we're trying to say, what I'm trying to say, Connor, is that we're looking at two completely different fights. Okay. Now I know you have a wrestling background. I know that you also compete in BJJ. I know that, so you do have a good understanding for grappling, right? Not necessarily as to say that you have a biasness for grappling, but overall, you understand MMA, you understand the value in striking in MMA, and ultimately, I think that is just what you are seeing. I think that you are seeing a fight to where, wow, you know what? Sean is doing exactly what Sean normally does, and how he wins 5 round decisions. So therefore, it's easy for your mind to look at that and say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, maybe Sean won this one. And also, I need you to understand, right? You got to ask yourself, did you really score that fight? Okay, while it was happening. Okay, because here's the thing, right? During the Usyk versus Rico Verhoeven fight, I was actually scoring the fight. Like literally down on my description below, every round I was updating my description, putting the score, right? Okay, I thought he won this one. I thought Usyk won this one. I thought Rico won this one. The majority of the rounds that I had, because remember, we score round by round, not by the overall fight, right? And how who scores overall fights? It's the Japanese. They don't score round by round where they tally up, a 10-8, 10-9 score or anything like that. They literally go by okay, the whole entire fight. Did he look good the whole entire fight? Who looked good the whole entire fight? Who should I give the check mark to? That is how the Japanese score MMA, right? That's not how it's scored in unified rules of MMA. It's scored round by round, just like boxing. Okay, how is a championship rounds scored in boxing? It's round by round. Every round, almost every round I gave to Rico Verhoeven, I probably gave 2 rounds to Usyk. And I have that on documented paper, written on the description, updating every round as the fight was going on live in my live stream. Okay? Now, if you actually scored the Sean Strickland and Kamzat fight, then fine. I'm not going to argue with you because remember, our argument to the fight is not going to change it in any kind of way. All right? But at the same time, I think there's room to give positive notions that you know what, you have a case for your guy one way or the other. Okay, so let me read some of these comments right here. Okay, Juice Man says that fight was in the air. Kamzat definitely lost aura though. He lost aura. Why? Why? I'm gonna get back to that in a second. I'm gonna get back to Juice Man's comments because I really want to address that one right there. Connor says, I definitely think the weight cut got him, though. Um, that wasn't the same comes out that fought DDP. Juice Man says, like the intimidating stare he does before the fight starts is BS now. Like, bro, what? Okay, yeah, what are you going to do? Connor says, I've watched it 3 times. At best I can do is 1-4 for Kamzat. 1-4 for Kamzat. Okay. You know what? Maybe that's what I need to do. Okay, maybe I need to watch the fight again because obviously I watched it live, and once again I will attest that I did not score the Kamzat and the Strickland fight the way that I scored the boxing match with Rico and Usyk. So I have an argument for Rico and Usyk, like everybody else has an argument for Rico and Usyk, and being that the majority of people sort of lean towards Rico, but I also look, man. It's like propaganda, right? It's like propaganda. We all fall into propaganda in some kind of way, right? Like whether it's the propaganda of, oh, what a great story. We want to see Sean win because we want to go stick it to the Muslims. That's one way to look at it. Oh, we want to see Sean win because we want to see another guy win the title for the second time around after losing it, right? As sort of like a bounce back comeback story, right? There's an inherent bias in that. You also got to understand there's also inherent bias on my part going like, man, you know what? I really would have loved for Kamzat to win that. Yeah, it would have been a real big victory for the Muslim guys, right? So, yeah, of course, man. Of course, I'm going to have those inherent biasness, but we have to be very cognizant of that as we sort of analyze these things. And, I try to be very cognizant of those things. Okay, so Juice Man says, wait, let me see, just making sure I didn't miss any comments here. Okay, so so the aura thing, yes. Like intimidating. Okay, I definitely think the weight cut got to him. Okay, I read that part. Connor says, haha, Juice Man. He says, yeah, definitely, bro. Didn't fight like the last fights. Juice Man said, Kamzat lost mad aura. I don't respect him anymore. Wow, okay. Bro can't hurt a fly. Mm, okay, yeah, that was what I was going to get back to was a Juice Man, right? Connor says either way, Kamzat is a monster. It just shows how good the jab, teep, and takedown defense is. Aha. So that's an important point that Connor made, and I think that was sort of the point that I was going to address towards Juice Man. And then Connor laughs at Juice on that comment. Okay, so to address what Juice Man said, right? Check this out, Juice. Here's what it goes, right? It goes like this. The aura is still there. Just because somebody got tired in a fight, it's not indicative of how they're going to perform in the next upcoming fight or how dominant they are going to be or how dominant they always have been. Okay, it's important to understand that, right? What we saw out of this were factors that I think need to be considered because let's understand something, right? Kamzat really was convinced that he was going to fight Yuri. Okay? He was convinced of that. There is a reason why George St. Pierre never went up at weight and never went down a weight. George St. Pierre said and compared his career to Roy Jones. Well, not compared his career to Roy Jones, but had hinted at Roy Jones's career as well as a downfall of his yo-yo diet and his up and down weight thing class that he was doing, right? It really affected him, right? So George St. Pierre did nothing of such sort. What he did was he fought at 170, a weight that he was comfortable at for his whole entire career. He retired, and then when he decided to make a comeback, he decided that he was going to bulk up in weight and move up to 185 and defeat Michael Bisping for the 185 title, right? That is a factor. That is a factor. There is a reason why guys don't move up and down the weight the way that Kamzat was recklessly trying to do, and then only to not even get the fight with Yuri in the first place. So that has to have affected him in some kind of way. Now the question is, let's see a fight where he's not cutting all that weight. I mean, where he's not bulking up and then cutting all that weight. Let's see a fight where he is at his best. Okay, because I don't want to. I don't want to victim. I don't want to throw blame at anybody other than Kamzat, right? Because Kamzat should be the one to be blamed because, hey, it's kind of like, you know what? You effed up. You're the one that made this decision. But at the same time, it was the UFC that promised him a 205 fight with Yuri. Okay? Nonetheless, the UFC says, all right, you know what? We're the ones that messed up. Maybe it did affect you in some kind of way. Not that the UFC would ever admit that, right? It's just not in their nature to do that. Not certainly not the kind of business that they are in. It's just not what they do. They're not going to admit that. So they're never going to admit that. And as a result of that, they decide, you know what? Uh, let's give Kamzat a rematch anyway. Not because they feel bad for yo-yoing him around different weight classes and categories for fights that never happened, like Yuri, right? But because they know that it's a lucrative fight. It was a lucrative fight the first time around, and it's an even lucrative fight the second time around, knowing that we can promote the factor of him going in there at a not 100% rate in terms of the massive weight cut that he had to do due to some miscommunication of weight classes that he was going to compete in, but ended up not doing so. Okay, so they factor that in. He gets a rematch. We may just see a Kamzat that looked like the Kamzat during the Kevin Holland fight. Okay, now let's get back to these comments right here. So, yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Go on a little bit of a monologue, then look at the comments and read them. So, all right, let's see here. Okay. Okay, so some GSP comments here. Okay, let's start with this right here, because obviously we read this already, but it's important to bring this up again. He says, either way, Kamzat is a monster. It just shows how good the jab and takedown defense is, right? The reason why I wanted to read that again from Connor was because it's important to understand sometimes basics can win fights, right? And what Sean Strickland does is it doesn't get any basic than that, but you know what? He perfects that basic. And you know what Bruce Lee said about, the man who studies one kick 10,000 times versus the man who knows 10,000 different kicks, right? Who is more deadlier in that regard, right? In the philosophy of Bruce Lee. Okay, so then Connor laughs at Juice. Juice Man says, GSP went up to fight Bisping. What do you mean? You didn't know he went up to fight Michael Bisping and won the 185 belt. I don't know if you know that or or if you're asking if that happened and that you didn't know, let me know what you meant by that. Connor says Prime GSP versus Prime Khabib would be sick. They talked about that. That was one of the $100 million fights that they were going to offer Khabib, to which he, obliged and said, I'm done completely. I'm not going to go back to that. But yeah, Juice Man says Kamzat would have got GSP in my opinion. I agree. I think this is a completely different breed of athletes now than during George St. Pierre's time. But I will say, George St. Pierre was ahead of his time, right? I think that if George St. Pierre continued on, I think there was a good chance that he could compete with the Kamaru Usmans, the Tyron Woodleys. Like, I think that he could have competed that far, right? Maybe even as far as, well, I wouldn't say Islam Makhachev. I think Islam Makhachev would have been his stopping point at 170, in my opinion. I mean Khabib. You okay? Khabib would. Okay, you meant Khabib, not GSP on the GSP fight. Okay, not Kamzat. Okay, you meant yeah. Either way, Khabib, Kamzat, the new generation of guys that was way beyond the time of George St. Pierre, but George St. Pierre's style is timeless, in my opinion. Right? I think that if you want to fight mixed martial arts, you have to emulate the fighting style and the training regimen of George St. Pierre. because I think that is what the perfect mixed martial arts fighter should be, right? Uh, Elusive footwork, good footwork, basic boxing, but at the same time, very well rounded in different areas of the game. But George St. Pierre was that. He was just an expert. He tried to be an expert of every part. No, let me scratch that. GSP was an expert in mixed martial arts. He wasn't an expert in boxing, was not an expert in kickboxing, wasn't an expert in BJJ the way Damian Maya was. He was an expert in mixed martial arts. Okay. Um, Connor says possibly Juice. I don't know. I don't rate GSP very high. Wow. Okay. Well, obviously, after going on that monologue that I had about GSP, obviously we disagree on that. Juice Man says GSP up there, but bro, every fight. What is this right here? Every fight Khabib left all his fights without a scratch on his face, literally. Okay, so that's a factor to really consider, right? You know, a guy who, you know, barely gets hurt in his fights. I mean, yeah, you definitely have to consider that. Um, Connor says, who's y'all favorite fighters of all time and favorite active fighter? Hmm. Juice Man says all-time tie for me is active right now is Justin Gaethje and Protest just based off their style. Okay, so you like the guys that like to make highlights. Okay. Connor says all-time for me is Anderson Silva. Active fighter is Peter Yan. Juice Man says, "Ooh, Yan, yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, yep, he's the world champion right now, my man." Connor Siller says, "Peter Yan is my top three of all time." Okay, crazy because for a Russian fighter, he's all stand up, etc., not just wrestling like the other Russians. Okay, that's in regards to Peter Yan. Well, you have to remember, man, there is a strong Muay Thai community in Russia, right? That's why a lot of them train in Thailand. That's why a lot of these Russian shows that you've seen, you know, all took place in Thailand. Um, they're also great at boxing. Obviously, you've seen that with Sergey Kovalev, Dmitry Bivol. You could add uh, Arthur Beterbiev in that list as well of the Russians, right? I mean, Arthur Beterbiev and Bivol, those are like the top two guys right now. So yeah, man, they have they're not just known for grappling. You know what? Here's the thing with Russia, right? They are just like the United States. Think about this, right? Is every American fighter a wrestler? No, but America does have the best wrestling, right? I mean, Sean Strickland is certainly not, you know, no wrestler, but he is a great striker. So what I'm trying to say is that Russia and America are very similar to Japan as well, right? They are very well rounded. They have every single type of martial arts, right? And I mean on an advanced level, because if you go to Spain, there's not going to be advanced BJJ or advanced, let's say, um, definitely not advanced wrestling, right? Spain would not be up there with advanced wrestling at all. Uh, but when you have America, um, Russia, and Japan, they know how to do it all. Um, Connor says his trips are so beautiful to watch. Though Juice, on the rare occasion, he does them. Juice Man says, yeah, he beat Princess O'Malley, but of course the UFC wants to push their star to the top, so they robbed Jan F. O'Malley. Okay. Um, Connor says, Jan has been robbed many times. Facts. Juice Man says, I'll say it again, F. O'Sally. Instead of calling him O'Malley, you call him O'Sally. Okay, that's solid. That's different. Connor says Jan depends a lot of his camps in Thailand and Aber Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, yes. Oh yeah, that's right. They're going to have a show there on June 27th. So that's not too far away. It's already June, obviously. What is the card after the White House? So is there a card after? Yes, there's a Manal Cap fight on June 20th. Okay, so that is the following week, Manal Cup in Haraguchi. Okay, so that's Haraguchi and Manal Cap. And then the Azerbaijan card, which, by the way, the Azerbaijan card is headlined by Manuel Torres and Fiziev. He says, very true, Juice. His whole journey to the top was gifted by the UFC. Yes. So, he was ranked 11 and then skipped to number one and robbed him. I know they were doing from the jump F Sally. Yeah, you got yeah, man, that's a new thing now. You got going on. You're gonna call him O'Sally. All right, so yeah, that's going to be the Azerbaijan card. Check this out right here. This is what they got for the Azerbaijan card. He says, I also think Aljo beats Sean 8 out of 10 times. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's hard to say that when he knocked him out in Boston, though, right? So Michelle Pereira is also on that card. Nazim Sadikov, Asu Charles Johnson, Ekram, Bruno Ferreira. All right, man. So we've got some quite a bit of an interesting card here. Hazanoff, Eric Nolan. I could have sworn we just saw him fight, or maybe it's a different Nolan. Let me see here. National Gymnastics Arena is where this fight is going to be held at. Okay, no, he's a New Jersey fighter. 9 out of 10 times. Okay, so how about this, right? What if they rematched at 145, right? What if that was the case, right? What if they rematched at 145, right? Could that be a possibility, right? If they rematched at 145, you know what? All honesty, I don't really see Sean beating a lot of 145ers, right? And I think it's the wrestling alone. I think the wrestling would cause so much problems um for Sean O'Malley. That's what I think. I think it would cause so much problems. They rushed Aljo to see what I mean. They stay giving him favorable situations, positions. F that dude. Um, O'Malley did the Connor versus Aldo thing to Aljo and had Aljo fighting weird. Okay, now I want to ask you about that, right? What is this Hebe Juju that you're talking about, right? Like, are you saying that like he casted a spell on him, which in my opinion, is not realistic? Like, you know how I feel about that. It's not realistic, but at the same time, there is an aspect of playing mental war games to where it becomes so unbearable to deal with an opponent because of the trash talk that they do, the type of personal attacks that they throw at you, to where you can't. I mean, look, you're just basically throwing you off your game, right? He says no. He just got in his head. Yes, yes. So that's more realistic, right there, right? That is more realistic. Um, Aljo was injured and just fought 2 to 3 months prior. You know what, man? You now have brought up a different interesting story here, right? Because I remember Aljo saying this in the Ariel Hawani interview. All right. He said in the Ariel Hawani interview that the UFC literally forced me into this fight knowing I was injured. So the way that Aljo was framing that story, it does seem like there's something suspicious going on there, right? Now, is it suspicious because they wanted to give Sean a favorable matchup, or is it suspicious because the UFC is just trying to fill up a card, especially a Boston card where you need some kind of Irish representation that isn't Conor McGregor or Ian Gary, or I don't know. I think maybe Ian Gary was in that card. I don't remember. You guys are going to have to kind of confirm with me on that one. But yeah, definitely O'Malley would have been the Irish representation of that Boston card, right? And what better way than to give him a title shot against, at the time, the champion in Aljamain Sterling. Connor says also that he did the fight a lot. Okay, Juice Man says, y'all must have not seen the behind the scenes between Aljo and Hunter. They literally were rushing him. Perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about right there, Connor. It's that same incident that I'm talking about right there. Okay, so yeah, I do remember that, Juice Man. Juice Man says, how is it suspicious he's champion if he's scared he was just saying to him, let him heal, but they weren't sliding with him. They seen an unfair advantage for their princess and force Aljo. Um, so here's the thing, right? The UFC will never admit that. There's no way they're going to admit that. It's not in their business nature to admit that. It's just not in their ethos to admit that. But the question is, do they need a popular guy to be champion in order for their business to thrive? Okay. And the reason why I asked that, Juice Man, is because isn't it that the UFC relies on not necessarily the fan favorite winning, but relies on the aspect and the living being of the UFC as the top mixed martial arts organization in the world, right? Like, isn't that what is enough to sell the company rather than, you know what, our Hulk Hogan and our Ultimate Warrior that we built up constantly wins, so we're going to sell merchandise off of this Hulk Hogan character that we have going on, right? I.e., you know, Hulk Hogan as in Conor McGregor, i.e., Hulk Hogan as in John Jones, or whoever you want to put in that category of somebody that carries the company, right? Is it that, or is it that they are reliant upon superstars? And are they reliant on superstars to the point that those superstars need to win? Because I have an answer to that. And I don't know if you have the same opinion on that, but I'd like to hear your take on it, right? Because here's my opinion on it, right? Here's my sworn opinion on this particular matter. And I could be wrong, and you guys are welcome to correct me on it, right? I believe that the UFC is heavily reliant upon the product in and of itself. That is what they are relying upon, right? Is the product in and of itself. They are reliant on the product being as is. So, in other words, if the popular guy wins, great. If the non-popular guy, the underdog, the guy that everybody hates wins, great. It's great either way, right? Or is it that they really require for a certain guy to win in order for them to build up their bottom dollar? Let me know what your thoughts are on that one. Ali Khan says, salam. Salam to you, my man. Connor says, Juice is right. He fought Jan twice, then fought TJ, then Henry, and then O'Malley 2.5 months later. I mean, you know, they need to fill up these cards, right? You know, these cards don't get filled up by themselves, do they? You know what I mean? Yeah, these cards don't get filled up by themselves, man. By the way, I'm gonna hit the camera in just a second, guys. So I'm definitely gonna be going a little bit longer now that I'm ready to go hit the camera on this one. So yeah, keep the chat going. I'm gonna set up the studio right now and yeah, and get it cracking. So if you just excuse me, he says, as everyone should, I'm boycotting the UFC White House card. I'm sorry to hear that, Ali Khan. Juice Man says, bro, I just don't be saying ish about O'Malley. These are facts. I'm not just a casual like the rest of this kid's fan base. Bro is a plant. Okay. I don't support tiny hats, but I'm gonna watch the White House card for sure. Okay, yeah. You know what? Brandon Schaub said something to the effect where he thinks you're a PUSSY if you are somehow boycotting this card or whatever, right? And I don't know, man. You know what? I have strong opinions about the tiny hats. I have strong opinions about Donald Trump. I have strong opinions about the direction that the country is going right now. I got strong opinions on all those things, right? But I don't know if I'm really going to go out of my way to miss a card that is a once in a lifetime event, especially if you are a mixed martial arts enthusiast yourself, right? I mean, it just seems inconducive to being a mixed martial arts fan, and it seems inconducive, especially for me, who has a mixed martial arts channel that ultimately should be covering all of these fights. If not, especially the biggest one of them all, right? So just something to think about right there. Um, yeah, something to think about there. Uh, but if you're gonna boycott it, here's my question, right? To the people that are saying they're gonna boycott the event, right? Politically, what do you get out of that? Like a serious question, right? What do you get out of boycotting the event? Like, does boycotting the event equal to changes in the world that need to be changed or will somehow force a hand in change? Like, let me know what you guys think about that, right? But more on that topic. Let me get this going right here as I now sit in the studio. All right, here we go. Turn on some lights. There we go. All right, and we are on camera. Oops, wrong side. All right. Okay, turning off the. All right. Let me see here. Okay, so mic check 1 2 1 2. Um. Okay, perfect. All right, we got the audio going. Okay, so the question is, what will boycotting the card do politically on a positive note, right? Like, will it create some kind of change? Um. Okay, let me read some of these comments right here. Okay, so okay, we'll start with Connor. He says, I don't support the tiny hats, but I'm going to watch the White House card for sure. Ali Khan says, should not support them. Ali Khan says, so they can feel it. I don't know how they're going to feel this one, right? I think there's people that are already adamant in watching the fight. So it's kind of at that point, if you can't beat them, join them type of thing, right? But yeah, Ali Khan says they feel it. Okay, they feel it. Okay, so Connor says Kyrie is a based MMA fan. Okay, doesn't let the politics or religion ruin some good old fights. Right, right. Well, because you got to think, right? My priorities are going to be the fights because obviously I'm a fight channel, right? I mean, I'm also a political channel. I've sort of immersed myself into that category of getting into Charlie Kirk politics, American politics, European politics, right? Any type of political angle that I could get myself into, right? I delve into it, right? So I've kind of thrown myself into that category at this point, right? But at the same time, even if you have political opinions on certain matters, I want to I want to look at this card like it's just any other pay-per-view because it really is. Like in all honesty, Justin Gaethje and Ilya Tapora could have been a fight card anywhere in the world. New York, London, Miami, you name it, right? They could have been anywhere. So, yeah. Ali Khan says, of course, they have an ego. Okay, Ali Khan says if the card does bad, they will be a laughing stock. Let's take a look at the statistics for a Paramount subscription this week, okay? Because if there is a spike in Paramount subscription this week, I think it's safe to say they succeeded, okay, in promoting this card. Because ultimately, what are people going to tune in to Paramount for this week, right? The White House card. There's people that are going to be hate watching the White House card as well. I need you to understand that, right? There is a thing called hate watching, okay? There are people who I've probably gone to high school with that are probably watching my channel just, oh, look at this guy. You know, he thinks he's like yada yada or whatever disparaging language that they want to, you know, spew out of that, right? Just anything that they could say out of that, they will, okay? So just like all the people that are political opponents of Donald Trump, just like all the people that are political supporters of Donald Trump, and then some people that are in between, they're gonna want to watch this fight out of curiosity. Ali Khan says, but I am not too much interested in the Ilya fight anyway against an old Justin Gaethje. You know what, man? If Justin Gaethje knocks out Ilya Topuria, boy, you missed out on a really good fight. You know, that's all I can say about that. That is if Justin Gaethje wins. If Ilya Topuria wins and you're right, you know, it's sort of just like, you know, status quo as usual. Connor says, Ali, at the end of the day, they have already made their money. Us just watching on Paramount doesn't do a thing for them. They have already made $7 billion. That's also a good point. Again, let's look up the subscription to Paramount this week. Subscription to okay, let's see. Has it increased? Let's take a look. Okay, well let's be specific about this. As of June 1st. Okay, so let's go with as of June 1st. Let's give a specific date. As of June, okay, let's do today. As of June 6th. Okay, so as of June 6th, the question is, I don't think that's necessarily a question I'm looking for here. Did it increase its audience? Let's try to find out. Let's see here. Paramount increased its audience by June by absorbing sibling streaming services, BET. No. Okay, they don't. Okay, so they don't have. Globally sits approximately 79.6 million globally. So they have 79.6 million globally, right? As of right now. So, all right, let's go with that, right? Let's find out what their subscription is during fight week, okay? But right now they're sitting at 79.6 million subscribers. Connor says, Ali, of the day, they have already made, okay, we read that part. Ali Khan says, yes, that's true, Connor, but they were just making the fights last minute for this card. You're not lying about that. Yeah, this is definitely one of those last minute cards. Ali Khan says it's not a great card. Juice Man says he's a Gangland channel. He rides with the Norteños. Who's a Gangland channel? Are you? I mean, well, yeah, I am a Gangland channel, but I'm definitely not a Norteño. I mean, yeah, I got homies that are Norteños, but yeah, man, you know, definitely not with the Norteños for sure. Connor says, yeah, boycotting does nothing. though. Just enjoy the fights, Ali. Yeah, okay. Connor Siller says, I can't believe Kyrie beat John Cena to win the belt in 2013. Yeah, okay, you're referring to that right there. Okay. Connor says it went up like $3, I think. Okay. It's only $13 a month. What was it before? So I'm assuming it probably, he says, I stand corrected. He runs a Southside 13. Oh, man. Yeah, no, not even that, bro. Not even that. Uh, but the color, you're close to the color. That's, yeah, you're right up. You're right with the color, but, not the team. So, yeah. All right. With that in mind, um, Kyrie runs the Muslim Brotherhood. Kyrie runs the Muslim Brotherhood. Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. All right. What did Bryce Mitchell say earlier here? Ooh. Okay. Let's see here.
How you feeling, man?
Feeling great, man. I'm really sore, like my arms are from the squeezing, and my back is like really, really sore. So I'm gonna need like a week to just rest my back. When you get old, your back starts hurting. That's a common old man problem.
You looked amazing. And man, first of all, what was the game plan coming into this fight? Because it was on short notice. You had a little bit of time to like study your opponent, but what was your game plan?
The game plan was to stick behind the jab and the cross. Also mix in some of these uppercuts and teeps and side kicks. And that was just to keep him off of me because we knew he was just going to come forward. And he likes hooks, which is generally a shorter punch. So you
Connor says, Juice, first time I was on his channel, I said he looks like the love child of Mark Hunt and Shavkat.
have to get closer to do that. So we figured, hey, just jab, cross, move left to right. And if he gets too close, then don't stay in his hook range. Actually close the distance.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to get off this stream in a little bit. I just wanted to kind of run this up to like at least get 100 views. By the end of it, I'm going to probably come back and do a stream about Ricky Chow. Do you guys know about the story that happened in South Carolina about that black kid who got shot by that Chinese man, right? It seems to be, he says not 20 more minutes. No, we will do 20 more minutes for sure, right? Just to kind of hit the 2-hour mark for sure. Sprinkle in a little Mike Tick Beck or a yeah, there you go. Yes. I get those comparisons. He says, no, I only know stories that happen in South Central. Okay, well, you're going to like this one. Obviously, this is South Carolina related, right? And there's a lot of people saying right now that they're going to, I don't know, like boycott like Asian businesses, like black people saying they're going to boycott Asian businesses or something like that. So I thought it was a pretty interesting story. But yes, we will get to that on another stream that I'm going to do following after this one. And yeah, so just hang tight for that one, guys.
100% and try to smother him, and we really did that effectively. There was a couple times where he had some glancing blows that if I was just an inch in closer, it would have been real bad. No bueno.
When you took him down, he could not get up. Were you surprised about that at all?
I was, and he didn't really try to get up as hard as he could until the third round.
Yeah, Bryce looked great, man. He absolutely looked great in this one. He absolutely looked great. Like just the Bryce Mitchell that should have been out there against John Silva.
And so the first 2 rounds are me being patient, holding good position, waiting and waiting and waiting, and it finally paid off, thank God. And you know, he didn't have to try as hard as he did in the third round. That just tells you how motivated he is, because he could have took the decision, lost, gone home and said, oh, well, I didn't get finished. But he didn't care about that. He wanted to try to get up to knock me out. And in the third round, by him trying to actually win is what led to the finish. He could have just sat on his back and lost with the decision.
By the way, speaking of Shavkat, right, Connor, speaking of Shavkat, Laura Sanko, who does Laura Sanko have a crush on out of everybody in the UFC roster? Laura Sanko. Who does Laura Sanko have a crush on in the whole entire UFC roster? And it's the answer to that is Shavkat Rakhmonov. Connor says me. Yeah, for sure. But you know, it's Shavkat Rakhmonov. Player ish, yeah. I mean, you know, speaking like a true Irishman, right? Like a true Irishman that lives in San Diego. Yeah, I'm sure you do perfectly fine, right? You're an Irishman that lives in San Diego. You know how that goes. You know what I mean?
But he didn't want to do that. He's too good to do that.
Speaking of that, you know, you were undefeated once. He just lost his O. I guess what advice would you give him, you know, to go back and kind of, you know, maybe take the pressure off of not being undefeated anymore?
Well, he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. He's 21, man, and he's much more successful than I was at 21. So he could tell me a thing or two, you know. And
wow, okay, that's you know what, man? As I was saying earlier in the stream, right? I thought it was very classy of Bryce Mitchell to proclaim that, right? Saying that, you know what, you came here at a short notice. You didn't have to take this fight. You did take this fight. There would have been no fight had you not been here. Connor says, not a huge fan of white girls, but she's okay. Okay, that's in reference to Laura Sanko. Okay, well, I tell you, well, you're in California, my man, so you're in the right place. I mean, obviously, there's a good white population in California, but you know, California is brown town. Okay, that's the best way to put it.
I just really respect that kid. You know, he's all class and he's a real fighter, and you'll never hear me say anything bad about him.
And obviously, you're gonna have to go back and watch your performance, but you know, overall, how did you think you did?
By the way, is it safe to say that Bryce Mitchell is the star of this show? Right? Like they figured, they're like, you know what, you're too controversial. You're too controversial to be at the White House. But this is what we'll do in the meantime. We'll put you in this scenario right here. We'll put you at an Apex card a week before, right? Draw up the ratings, right? Just get the algorithm going before the White House card.
You're right. I need to go back and watch it because I can remember very little of it. The thing I remember the most is when he was actually punching me. That's all I remember is getting punched. Pretty much. I remember holding him down a lot and like putting my shoulder in his throat and constantly trying to put his head on the cage because I feared that he was going to walk off the cage. So I remembered like little moments.
Yeah, Juice Man says Bryce definitely got some buzz. Yep.
But most of the moments I remember the bad moments for me when like he punched me and it was a little bit dingy. You know, he got me with some dingers. You know, I got dinged up.
And, you know, you said the reason you went down to bantamweight was because you felt small at featherweight. Now that your second fight at bantamweight, do you feel big in there?
That's your homie, Juice?
I just feel...
He says tiny hats can't handle the noticer. The noticer, is that a nickname for Bryce Mitchell?
Matched. You know, I don't feel big, but I definitely don't feel small. And I feel like when I get my grips,
that's what she said. Anyways,
I can take anybody down in that weight class, and I don't think size will be a disadvantage. I think it's an equal playing field, whereas I was really outsized at 45.
Gotcha. And, you know, obviously you said you're sorry, you want to take some time off. when would you like to return? You know, there's that Oklahoma City card that, I mean, kind of feels like you need to be on that card, but is there like a date?
Oh,
kind of
okay.
timeline that you'd like to get
Nickname
back?
for people
I
noticing
appreciate your
tiny
eagerness,
hats.
man.
Okay.
If it wasn't for people wanting to watch me, I wouldn't have a job. So I really like to hear that out of y'all, man, that y'all want to see me fight. That really fires me up, and that motivates me just hearing you say that. But I can't guarantee anything, because sometimes, like, I wake up and can't walk tomorrow, and then sometimes I wake up and be like, oh, I'll do a backflip, you know. There's no way to know until really tomorrow, and I'm going to go home and put some ice on my back.
Hey, Mom, now that I have an after-school job, I think I want to buy
All right, skip this right here. Okay.
And is there anybody that you like to fight? I think I saw that you want to fight Ilya's brother Alex, possibly.
Well, I would take that fight, absolutely. You know, the only person that I don't want to fight is McGee, because me and McGee are related, you know, and most people don't know that. But me and McGee are brothers, you know, so we got the same father. So I don't think it'd be fair to be fighting my brother like that. So.
What? What did I just hear? So McGee and Bryce Mitchell are half brothers? They're half brothers? Did anyone know that? Wow. All right.
Besides fighting my brother, I'll fight anybody.
The last one for me. Your thoughts on the White House card kind of went viral this week. You've gone viral in the past, but I guess is it not?
Maverick, what are you talking about? Down syndrome kids and all of that. I'm probably superior than you in intellectuality. So what the F are you talking about, Maverick? Only a fool who doesn't have a profile pic would call himself Maverick.
Nice to know that most people agree with your thoughts on the White House and just the government and their place in sports, or their place that should not be in.
Let me ask you something, Maverick. How do you even come up with a conclusion like that? Oh, you could have fooled me. What makes you think that you are more intelligent than me just based off looking at me through a screen? And that's sort of a weird thing that a lot of people have, right? I see this a lot even in, like, black entertainment content spaces, right? They see somebody on camera and there's like, oh, you look like a bitch ass nigga. You look like a bitch ass nigga. How do you know how somebody is or how they're going to respond in a violent situation? Because obviously by calling somebody a bitch ass NIGGA, you are referring to the fact that these people are not capable of violence, or people that somehow are less than you when it comes to that realm, right? And then you have Maverick over here who creates some sort of like imaginary assessment as to try and determine how intelligent somebody is. But in reality, you're just trying to pick out any low-hanging fruit that you can to somehow feel better about yourself. Look, here's the reality of it, Maverick. I don't know you from a can of paint, but I guarantee you don't have $5,000 in your bank account. I guarantee you got a car that is lit up like a Christmas tree with their check engine lights on. You probably don't have insurance, so any underlying health issues you're going to have, it's just going to deteriorate you any further, right? He said, I asked if you are Abe Lincoln's down cousin. Well, here's the thing, right? The way that you're framing that question, where you're asking, are you Abraham Lincoln's down cousin? I don't think you're asking if I'm one of Abraham Lincoln's down ass crip cousins, right? Because when you're referring to cousins, or when you're referring to down as in, slang terminology that determines whether the person is down to commit criminal violence or not, I don't think that's what you're even talking about. You're trying to say something that is disparaging because you want to feel better about yourself. A man who doesn't have his own profile pic, a man who doesn't have any. Look, this is the reality of it, Maverick. If you don't have your own channel to where you have your own voice, you probably should refrain yourself from talking negatively about people. Okay, because there are people on YouTube that are trying to better themselves, that are trying to better their lives, that are trying to find different opportunities to which you are not doing. You are nothing more than a mere distraction. You are nothing more than just a person that doesn't know how to build, but yet you know how to destroy. And I don't even know if you have any skills at destroying anything at all. He says, and I can see you have and I can see you have a little fanboy. No, it's not called fanboys or anything like that. It's just called people that are observing the truth and what is in front of them. I think you came in here with the anticipation that you're going to say something disparaging to feel better about yourself, and you are hoping that nobody would call you out on your. You want to somehow either be praised by it or you want other people to agree with you, but the minute other people don't agree with you, you somehow back up into a corner and then say disparaging things to other people that don't agree with you and call them my fanboys. Maverick says, no, I was just pointing out another talentless YouTube streamer. Okay. Is that supposed to hurt my feelings? Because how do you measure talent? A lot of other people would disagree with you. A lot of people would agree with you. What am I going to do with that? He says it's always the neck beards with the WWE belts. Okay, I didn't know you came up with a research to determine that people who have this kind of beard are correlated to people that are more than likely to buy a WWE belt and put it in their background for their streaming, for their you want me to do with that? He says, Juice Man with the nut riding is sad. What's sad is that you don't have a voice. You want to come in here and want to feel better about yourself. So you come in here and you say disparaging things because why? Because once again, you probably don't have $5,000 in your bank account. You probably don't have a college education. Let me ask you something, man. If you stood up in your house right now, Juice Man, could you touch the ceiling? I want you to answer this for me, right? He says, this isn't a debate. It's three viewer stream. It doesn't matter how many people are in here, right? I'm going to address you regardless. See, here's another thing, right? This is how I can detect that you just came in here to feel better about yourself. You want to tear somebody down so badly because you want attention. Maybe you want to do it for a little bit of entertainment, right? You point out the number of people in here, which is ever changing. You say that it's 3. I'm looking at it right now. It's 6. In a couple of minutes from now, it's probably going to be 10. Who knows and who cares? The point of the matter is, it's like you're just trying to point out any little thing to feel better about yourself, and yet nobody can even see you. So you know what I'm going to do, my man, to the people that I don't see? I'm just going to get rid of you and send you to the shadow realm. Just like that. You're sent to the shadow realm because you can talk to yourself all you want right now. You can try and type and you'll just find that you are blocked from typing because I can do that, right? I don't need to sit here and listen to you, but thank you for the entertainment though. Give it up for Maverick. Give it up for Maverick, guys. A guy who we will never see, a guy who has no profile picture. Notice how it's always the guys that have a profile pic. Because here's the thing about it, right? If you did have a profile pic, and I found you anywhere in the United States, I would do the most worst possible crimes you could think of that a human being is capable of if I was to ever see you. I would do the worst things to you. That is the reason why you feel safe talking with no profile pic, because I would absolutely destroy you in front of your family, in front of your wife, if you have a wife, in front of your kids, if you have kids, and in front of your whole entire family, in front of everybody that you love. I would destroy you. And not only that, I would enjoy doing it. I would humiliate you. I would take everything that you have. If you had jewelry on you, it would be taken. If you had a cash floating around somewhere, you would be negative. On top of that, I may just take it out on everybody that you love. You understand? He says, it was fun watching you son him. LOL. Yeah. He says, what's with the hostility? 3 Revenue says, well, here's the thing, 3 Revenues, right? You're asking me a very fair and polite question, right? What's with the hostility? If you were to continue engaging me right now, would we have any hostility of any kind, right? Would you say something disparaging? Would you make remarks about, oh, your beard, or whatever low-hanging fruit, immature comment that you can make? Or would you engage in a very respectful manner, in a very gentlemanlike manner, and say, you know what? I'd like to know about this. I'd like to know about you. I'd like to know about what you think about the fight. I'd like to know what you think about the state of America right now. Intelligent questions. I would welcome that. But what I'm not going to welcome is a hostility of any kind, because you will be met with hostility. Here's what it is, guys. If you try and throw a rock at me, I'm going to throw, metaphorically, okay, metaphorically speaking, I'm going to throw a grenade at you. That's how I roll. Oh, but that's not, the punishment is not equal. That's horrible. Why would you do that? Yeah, I'm a very extreme person, and I don't apologize for that. Okay? If there was any streamer, mark my words right now, okay? If there was any streamer, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. Let me just say, don't be surprised if you ever find out anything about me that is scary and something that will give you nightmares. Don't ever be surprised, okay? Because I am a nightmare to deal with. A lot of you have no idea what you are dealing with. A lot of you have no idea who you're talking to and the things that I could do to you. You see, the reason why you got all this hostility or this bravery to say the things that you say is for 2 reasons. Number one, we're behind a screen. I don't know you from a can of paint. You could be from anywhere in the United States. You could be from anywhere in the world. You're just here to have fun. Okay, great. That's no problem. The internet is fun. Being on YouTube is fun. Talking to you guys is fun. I love all of that. It's all great. But the minute you say something disparaging, okay, I don't care about freedom of speech in terms of what you say to me. I could care less what you say about other people's race, other people's religion, even my own religion, because I already know what type of disparaging things you're going to say about that. None of that sort is going to shock me. But you better believe, if you ever disrespect me in any kind of way, I'm going to hit you up like Tupac in the worst way possible. And shout outs to you throwing a Tupac reference there. 3 Revenue says life goes on by Pac, bro. Yes. Thank you for that. Shout outs to you, my man. So there's no hostility. I'm just meeting that Maverick guy with hostility. I'm not going to sit here and take BS and and not say or do anything about it, right? Look, here's the thing, right? If you guys want somebody that's okay with disrespect, go to some white boy channel where they love self-deprecating jokes. I'm not all about self-deprecating jokes. I'm not all about that. I'm not going to sit here and try to humble myself. I'm not going to try and sit here and try to lower myself so that you peons can feel better about yourself. I'm never going to do that. In my mind, I think that I'm better than you, and I'm sorry. That's just what it is, okay? In every metric that we could possibly measure. For one, I'm brave enough to step on the camera, start a channel, get on the mic, and talk to every one of you. On top of that, most of you are not. So respect the pecking order. That's what a lot of you guys don't respect. A lot of you don't respect pecking orders. Okay, you need to respect pecking orders. You need to respect when somebody is more dangerous than you. You need to respect when somebody has more money than you. You need to respect when somebody is just better than you. A lot of you don't have that, and that is why you talk smack online, faceless, with no profile pic. He says there is a hunt for a man in Ohio who murdered 12 people. Wow. Ooh, is that right? Wow. That's crazy stuff, man. Pope Don says, respect the pecking order or whatever. Poveen says, yeah, man, respect the pecking order. Look, let me give you guys a little bit of some story, right? Growing up in New Jersey, you know what I learned growing up in New Jersey? I learned the value of aggression. I learned the value of roughhousing. I learned the value of being the most ruthless mother effer in the whole entire block. That's what I learned in the East Coast. When I moved out to the West Coast, I brought all of that with me. And because of that, I've managed to build, well, a network of friends, let's say, in California, okay? Let's just put it like that, right? Because I got a name around here, okay? I'm known in certain parts, okay? In terms of, look, this game that we're playing here, right? Whatever you want to call it, this gangster shit, understand that it is predicated on who the most vicious can be. All right? I wish for some of you to invite me at a dark alley with no cameras around, with nobody around, with no evidence of any kind trailing to whatever it is that we're going to do. And I want to find out. I want to find out who the baddest guy is. I want to find out if you are really about what you say you are. And most of you, listen, let me be honest with you guys, most of you are not. Okay, most of you love your life. Okay, most of you love your life, and that's perfectly okay. Most of you have struggles in life. So either you love your life, that you are so rich that there is no way you're going to go out of your way to try and start problems with me with the type of hell that I could bring upon you. Guys, I need you to understand something, all right? I've had YouTube beef before. You want to know how that ended? And by the way, this is a local Sacramento guy. All the Sacramento guys know this. His wife ended up divorcing him because she was so scared of our beef. I want you to put that in perspective, okay? Creamy says, bro, you're trying your hardest to act like a wrestler. Keep working on it. Okay, you're saying that I'm trying to like do a WWE skit because I have a WWE belt behind me? Is that what you're applying? Look, I'm talking about real life scenarios here. I understand that I have a WWE belt behind my background. I'm not even really currently a wrestling fan at the moment. I think that's totally irrelevant. I'm talking about real stuff here. I'm telling you that the last guy that I beefed with, Maverick created an alternative. Laughing my ass off. That's lame. I don't know. I don't think that's the same guy. I don't know if it is. It doesn't matter. I'm going to treat you, since you all are screen names. I'm only going to treat you by the last thing that you said. And if it's the last thing that Creamy said is, bro, you're trying your hardest to act like and talk like a wrestler. Okay, then what do you want me to say to that? Like the guy thinks I'm playing around here. He says that's obvious. What I'm talking about that you say is real doesn't mean it's real. Keep trying, little guy. No, it's real. It's real. Okay, I've had beef here on YouTube with a guy named Smack. Okay, he's a Sacramento guy. Him and his wife ended up divorcing because, let's be honest about this, okay? I scared the living piss out of the dude. All right? And this is a fact, okay? I marked him out in front of everybody in Sacramento, and there's also a whole lot of things behind the scenes that I'm not going to go into. Anyways, Creamy, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because I'm going to be coming back, and I'm going to do I'm going to do a show about Ricky Chow. Yeah, so I'm going to do a show about Ricky Chow. I think that's all that I have for this one right now, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Obviously, the UFC White House fight week is upon us right now, and we will be doing full coverage on that. Like and subscribe. I will be back with another stream right now. I'm not acting. All of this is real. All of this is real. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. All right, guys, come back. Okay, literally in less than 60 seconds, come back because I'm going to start off with a new stream.